So Hare Krishna everyone, this is Krishna Dasa. Welcome you all to today's session of Bhakti Sutra. Is my volume okay? You want me to increase my volume? It's okay?
No, it's right.
Okay.
Please increase it. No, I can't hear.
You want more?
A little louder, if possible.
Okay. So let's say the prayer to Guru. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So in today's session, we will...
Vinayak Prabhuji, I just wanted to request, just as we say the prayer to Krishna before we start this, I want to say something for Vinayak Prabhuji. Just the simple one, Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu. Is everybody okay? Then
So
I can
that's...
just say that. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara. Guru Sakshat Para Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha.
Thank you, Chitra ji. Very kind of you. Thank you so much. Today we start from Shloka 35. And do you remember what we covered in the previous Shloka? So this is the third section of the Bhakti Sutra. We discussed that this is where we're going to start talking about the implementation aspects. So let us start with Shloka 35. Tattu Vishaya Tyagat Sangat Tyagacha. So let's see what this means. So Naradji says, indeed, to attain that source of supreme love, one must renounce the objects of sensory pleasure as well as attachment to the material world. So now Naradji starts talking about what all we need to do, the implementation details. See, in the path of bhakti, Lord Krishna has also said that sensory pleasures become a major obstacle because they start creating attachments, desires. It's a big distraction, and that won't let us progress on the spiritual path. So Sri Krishna has explained this in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It is Shloka 2.60. It starts as Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschittaha indrayani pramatini haranti prasabam manah. This was a very powerful statement where Krishna had said the senses are so strong and turbulent, O son of Kunti, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is practicing self-control. Sounds familiar? We discussed this when we were doing our Bhagavad Gita. This is what Krishna has said, that the senses are really that strong. So you cannot take them easily. It's not like, yeah, I will control it. It's not that easy a job. So we have to approach it with that kind of a respect and discipline. So in order to cultivate love towards God, it is important that we have to renounce the objects of sensory pleasures. See, this does not mean that you deny yourself enjoyment or pleasure. That's not what Krishna is saying. Rather, the advice is we redirect the energy towards spiritual practices and God. For example, you like hearing the melodious thing, right? So hear the bhajans of God. You like singing. Why don't you sing the praise of God? So it's not that using your ears or using your tongue is bad, but Krishna's advice is channelize that need for expression, that need for perception, channelize it towards the spiritual path and towards God. That is the best way for us to get that under control and make sure it doesn't create a distraction for us. I want to talk about a maybe I'll make it a little interesting. Okay. Again, let me start again with what the teaching is, what the message is. The message is we need to focus more on the spiritual path and make sure that we don't get hung up and attached and distracted by the illusionary material world, which is a manifestation created by Maya. Because whatever Maya has created is an illusion, but we don't realize that. And we are attached to that. And we lose track of the real. So that is why we are not supposed to get hung up on this. And that is why we are supposed to control our senses and be firm. So, have you heard of the great philosopher Plato? You can Google him later. Plato is one of the most well-known philosophers. Socrates, Plato, they're all the same category of philosophers. And I used to read a lot about them and their works a long, long time ago, many years ago. The most beautiful part, I consider it beautiful, some people don't, but the most beautiful aspect of how Plato, for example, will drive an argument is is as if he's playing chess with thoughts. So you ask a question, he's already anticipated what you're going to ask 10 questions down the line. So he will make a statement now which will not make sense right now, and by the time you go to question number 3 or 4, I'm cornered. So that is Plato. Anyways, here Plato had a very famous philosophical thought experiment that is called as the Allegory of the Cave. Allegory basically means story. So the story describes a group of prisoners who have been chained inside a cave all their lives. So their entire lives, they have only been inside that cave. And they are facing the wall. They are tied in such a way that they are facing the wall, the other end of the cave. And their head cannot move. The head can only stay straight and only look at the wall. All other movement is chained. They cannot do that. So that is how they are kept. So what is the result of this? What is the experiment actually? The experiment is they can only see the shadow of objects that are being carried by people behind them. Because people are walking around carrying things and everything behind them, and they are tied, their face is straight and they can only see the wall. So all they can see is the shadow on the wall. Over the years, gradually the prisoners start believing that those shadows, they are the reality. Because that's what they have seen all their lives. See where we are getting it? One of the prisoners is freed after a few years. And he is led outside the cave. And once he goes outside the cave, he looks at the sunlight. And that is the first time that he is seeing the sunlight. And he's dazzled, he's baffled, he's confused. And he's totally bewildered. What is this that I'm seeing? And he goes through a very transformative experience at that instance. So once his eyes adjust to the brightness, he realizes that the shadow that I have been seeing all my life, that is not reality. This is reality. He gets that kind of realization, transformation. But guess what? When he goes back inside the cave, he tries to convince the other prisoners. He tells them, dude, what you are seeing is just a shadow. This is not reality. But what happens? These people can't conceive. They can't perceive what he's saying. They can't comprehend what this guy is talking about. What sunlight? What reality? Reality is in front of us. We have been seeing it all our lives. And they ridicule him. You see the correlation between that and what happens in our lives? So this story is basically encouraging us to question the perception of reality. What we think as important, what we think as reality. We need to question it because we may be like that prisoners in a cave who are mistaking a shadow for reality. Because only when you start questioning, will you be able to get rid of the attachment to the fake reality? That is where Krishna talks about using the buddhi yoga, using jnana, intellect. That is where knowledge is important. For example, you think the laddu is the most precious thing on the planet. So you are going to ignore the roti, you are going to ignore the curd and all the good stuff because you think the laddu is the greatest thing on planet Earth. But a third person or a wise person knows that that is only going to cause you harm. It's not good for you. But you, how can you reduce the attachment? What is the best way for you to reduce the attachment for that laddu? The best way is to use your intellect. Jnana. Use the intellect. And once you intellectualize and once you understand that this may look beautiful, it may taste good, it may smell aromatic, but actually it does so many bad things to my body. Once you have that jnana, once you have that knowledge, then you can get detachment from that laddu. I'm just giving a very gross example, but there are much more subtle attachments we have in life, much more stronger attachments we have in life for things which are all prayer. And the best way to avoid that attachment is not by forcing. You shouldn't be forcing. You should saying that Nane Guruji said no laddu, so no laddu, no laddu. Or God will put me in hell if I eat laddu, so no laddu, no laddu. That's not going to help because physically you are detached, but mentally you are not. You will always be thinking about it. So the best way is to intellectualize. So the Plato's experiment is there to make us understand that we have to question our perception of reality, our perception of what we think is important. That is the first step. And also we have to understand, this we discussed in the Bhagavad Gita again, that the way our body works, this mechanism works is the intellect decides and the mind follows. For example, if the intellect says that money is the most important thing for you, the intellect will say that once, and then rest of the life the mind will run behind money. That is the design. So if our mind is running behind various sense objects, then what we should do? That is why then we should go and target the root cause, the big guy, the intellect, and use the intellect in the right way. Once we start using the intellect, the mind will automatically come under control. That is the example we were talking about. So basically, we need the intellect to tell the mind that whatever you are running behind, these are illusions created by Maya. They are temporary. They are like those shadows on the wall. We think it is real because we have not yet seen the light. And our goal should be to go see the light. How can you go and see the light if you are totally content and happy looking at the shadow? So you have to question. And that questioning is what Naradji says is the beginning of creating detachment towards these sense objects, sensory objects. So that is why Sri Krishna spoke about the intellect in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 was Sankhya Yoga. That's the reason. Where in 2.41, Sri Krishna said, O descendant of the Kurus, the intellect of those who are on this path is resolute, and their aim is one pointed. But the intellect of those who are irresolute is many branched. Many branched basically means there is no focus. The intellect is just going all over the place. The emphasis is that if you are resolute, if you are convicted, if you have conviction to be on the path, grow on the path, then your intellect should have a clear purpose and a singular aim. Otherwise, your intellect will remain unfocused and scattered. And if your intellect is unfocused and scattered, you cannot control the mind because the mind can be controlled only through the intellect. That is why we are studying Sankhya Yoga, Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Sutra. These are all helping our intellect become sharper and focused while working on the mind and purifying us. So first thing, Are we determined to succeed on the spiritual path? Because that is what is the beginning. If there is determination, conviction, then questioning comes, and then intellect comes, and then mind comes. All of those things come. But are we all having the conviction? That is the first question we should ask ourselves. So that once the answer is yes, we have the conviction, then let us tell our intellect right now in this session, let us make our intellect tell our mind that the light is important, the light is reality. Let us not waste our lives running behind these fleeting pleasures. Let us not get distracted by these fleeting pleasures. Now Naradji is explaining how to do this in the next sloka. So now in this sloka we just discussed what needs to be done. Now in the next sloka Naradji will tell us a little bit more about how we can do this. So let us go to sloka 36. Avyavruta
Avyavrita
Bhajanat.
Bhajana
Through continuous and consistent loving service to the Lord. That is the first advice by Naradji. As you can see again, the importance of consistency. This word is going to be repeated so many times that it's going to be ingrained in our minds. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Okay. So tomorrow there is a poker game going on with my friends. So Guruji, you just record and keep. I will go play the poker. That is not consistency. Let the poker wait. If it can't wait, let it go. See? Just like that. If you are supposed to do chanting, it shouldn't be like, oh, my friend is calling me to go to a restaurant. So I'll go and come, and then if I have time, I will chant. No, it should be the other way around. Let the restaurant wait. If it can't wait, it's not for you. So these spiritual practices, this path of spirituality has to be the priority. That is conviction, and that is how you can be consistent. Now listen, this is not my gyan. I'm just reiterating what Naradji is saying. I'm trying to put it in simple words. Because as long as, the term I used is the difference between convenient bhakti and consistent bhakti. I'm not saying there is anything sinful about convenient bhakti. If that is all you can do, go ahead, do that. But we discussed that there are two types of bhakti. One is sadhana bhakti, one is siddha bhakti. As long as we are doing convenient bhakti, we are going to be stuck in sadhana bhakti. If we have to reach towards siddha bhakti, we have to make the switch to consistent bhakti. See, I'm trying to lead by example. It's not like I'm a mega millionaire or anything. I'm just like all of you. I have my struggles, my material struggles. I have to pay my rent. I have to, work full-time job. I also have to socialize. I'm also a leader in the corporate sector. I also have to keep those circles. People call me also for parties. Especially Friday evenings is the hottest time for parties. My VP called me once and I had to say no to even him. So I'm leading by example. I'm not saying I'm doing something great. I'm just saying I'm trying to follow. And I think it is important. And I have felt a transformation in myself in the past 3 years, where this kind of consistency, I think, has helped me get a better grasp on my own mind. So that is the same request I have for you is, I think you are all postgraduates. I think you should all now try to switch from sadhana bhakti to siddha bhakti. And the best way to do that, as per Naradji, is consistency. Swami Mukundananda, in one of the lectures, he gives the example of firewood. Do you know what's a firewood? It's a kind of wood. If you rub it together, for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, if you keep rubbing, it catches fire. So in very olden days, thousands of years ago, that is how people used to start fires, either with a stone or with these firewoods. These were the things. But it's a beautiful example Mukundanandaji gives. He says that firewood, you have to keep rubbing consistently for 10 minutes, then it catches fire. You cannot say, I will rub it for 10 seconds and take a break. Then I will rub it again for another 10 seconds, then I'll take a break. What happens if you do that? I want to hear your perspective. What do you think will happen if you take 2 pieces of firewood, rub it for a few seconds, keep it aside, then pick it up again? What do you think will happen? Anybody
Not
wants
catch
to?
fire.
That is one thing.
The
What
heat
will
will
not
go
happen,
down.
you have said, but what will happen?
What is the property that firewood? No, it has to give fire. If you're not constantly doing it continuously, it loses its property.
Very possible. Sulataji, you had something to say?
Yeah, we will fall again to the low level and then restarting repetitive. Like we need to.
Okay. Very good. All right answers. But the point is, if you try to do that with the firewood, where you are rubbing it for a minute, then you are saying, I'll take a break, then you come back, rub it, it will, like Simranji rightly said, it will never catch fire. But you will keep rubbing it for days and weeks and months, and it will still not generate fire. And what will happen is, you are going to wear out the wood. Like Lakshmiji said, eventually the wood will lose its property because you have worn it out, and you will wear yourself out. You're going to get all tired and frustrated because you're going to say, I've been rubbing these 2 pieces of wood for months and nothing is happening. That is what happens with Bhakti yogis. A lot of people give up. I told you in the last session also, there have been young people who have come to me and said, Guruji said Hare Krishna bolo, so I did Hare Krishna, nothing happened. First of all, the problem is expectation. They think with every Hare Krishna something has to happen. And secondly, they are testing. Like they will do it for 2 days, and then for the next 2 days they are going around seeing if something changed. It doesn't work like that. So the consistency is key. If we are not consistent, we are going to wear ourselves out. We will not get the results. We will be stuck in sadhana bhakti. So if you have to actually reach Siddha Bhakti, that consistency is what is key. So we have to move from convenient bhakti to consistent bhakti. That is what Sri Krishna has also said in the Bhagavad Gita. If you remember, he said, Sarveshu Kaleshu Mam Anusmara. Remember me at all times, consistently. And in the other verse, he said, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam. Everywhere the consistency aspect has been reiterated by Bhagavan Krishna also. Because that is what is most important. So each time we catch ourselves not being consistent, we have to tell our minds, remember the fire sticks, it's not going to catch fire. My goal is to get fire. Kindle the fire within me. That is my goal. And to reach that goal, I need to consistently keep rubbing. I need to consistently be practicing. So we have to keep reminding that to ourselves. And maybe Deepaji knows this. The great yogi Patanjali, he said, practice becomes firmly grounded when it has been cultivated for a long time, uninterruptedly, with earnest devotion. The key is again the word uninterruptedly. So whatever you are doing, whatever devotional practices you are doing, set a time, set a particular schedule, and be consistent. No matter what, be consistent. And that consistency will make sure that you progress towards Siddha Bhakti. That is what Lord Krishna has said. That is what Naradji has said. That is what the great Patanjali has said. And that is what many other sages have also said. And now I am also telling you the same thing. So Adi Shankara has said that breaks in our devotion, breaks means not being consistent, actually makes us weaker. It's a very interesting concept, and it's a fact. Adi Shankara has said this. So I want to give an example to make this point. Like, let us say you are climbing a tree, and let us say your goal is to reach the top of the tree, but you are not focused on climbing the tree. You are catching some branch, you are putting your leg somewhere, but you are looking at the bird, you are looking at the flower, and you fall down. And then again you pick yourself up, and again you try to climb, and again you are not focused. Instead of consistently keeping one leg at a time and going 1 feet at a time, you are all over the place. Sometimes you want to catch that branch, sometimes you have to put your feet somewhere else, sometimes you're distracted by a bird, sometimes you're distracted by an insect, sometimes a flower. You keep falling, but okay, you keep rising up. But what is net what is happening? Every time you fall, are you not becoming weaker? Every fall is making you weaker. It is making you get hurt. So the chances of you reaching the top becomes lesser and lesser the more times you fall. So that is Adi Shankara's philosophy. He says the breaks in your practice actually make you weaker. So let us, get that perspective. It's a very profound concept. So it's not just keeping you in sadhana bhakti, it is actually taking you backwards sometimes. It is making you weaker. So that is why let us be consistent. So my humble request is, you don't have to say that I am going to do like 1,000,000 rounds of chanting every day. Set very realistic goals. Start small. It's okay if you say, I'm going to just do 108 Harinamas or whatever name you want. That it's okay. But be consistent. And that is going to help us. So that is what Adi Shankara has also said. So Adi Shankara says, so I gave an example of a man climbing a tree, but in the context of what Adi Shankara said, Adi Shankara says, every time we give in to temptations and take a break from devotion, we get weaker. And if we keep doing it,
I think there's also a risk of giving up then. If we get weaker and weaker, then we might give up one day.
those are the type of people who give up. Only
Yeah.
people who are going backwards, they give up because they don't understand why they are not progressing. You see, the consistent folks, they have no time to think about failure because they are consistent and they are making progress every day. The same screw example we gave in Bhagavad Gita. You just be consistent and you will know that you are making progress. It's only the people who are like distracted, they take breaks and they do convenient based bhakti, they give up. And the profound thing that Adi Shankara has said is, every time you give in to temptations, and because of which you're going to lose track of your devotional path, that is making you weaker internally. So keep that in mind. These are all very, very profound and very, very precious teachings given to us by these great sages and saints. Let's introspect on them. Okay, let's go to the next sloka, sloka 37. Lokepi
Lokepi
Bhagavat Guna
Bhagavat Guna
Shravana Kirtanat.
Shravana Kirtana.
By hearing and singing the glories of the Lord, even while engaged in worldly activities. That is the second tip Naraji is giving us. Naraji is reiterating what Sri Krishna said in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Anashritaha karma phalam karyam karma karotiya ta sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnircha chakriyaha. Sri Krishna said, he who performs his duty without attachment to the results and remains even-minded in success and failure is not subject to the bondage of karma, O Arjuna, and he is a true renunciate, not the one who merely refrains from action. This is what Sri Krishna has said. The 6th chapter. And if you remember, this is what George Fursten had summarized, and I had explained it in the Bhagavad Gita when we were studying. I said, this is what is meant by renunciation in action rather than renunciation of action. So if you want to succeed in the path of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is saying you don't have to give up your actions. You don't have to say, I will not work, I will not go to office, I will not take care of my children, I will not get married. That is all not required. That is renunciation of action. What is required is do whatever you have to do, be in the world, take care of your duties, do everything that you have to do, but in a mode of Bhakti Bhava, where you are doing everything, sacrificing the results to God, doing it for the happiness of God, and thinking of God while you are doing. One of the easiest ways, Naradji says, is of practicing this is by singing the praises and glories of God while performing your actions. If you are ashamed of singing, chant or do it in your mind. But, I have seen this. Paramahamsa Vishwananda, the Guruji I was talking about, I have seen some of his interviews. And I was telling this to Kalpana also, because this I cannot do. So he's definitely much more elevated than me. He many times carries a chanting bead in his hands, and he's taking questions, very deep questions, and he's answering them, and he's on TV. So he knows that there are millions of people watching him, so he cannot make a mistake. So his answers have to be very correct, right? In spite of that, you can see that his fingers are all the time on the mala. The mala is rotating, and he's listening to questions and answering also. And basically, he's chanting also in his mind. I mean, he's already that elevated. But that is one of the methods that Naradji is also saying, is when you are performing your duty, chant the name of the God, sing the glories of the God. Make sense? And sacrifice the results. That is what. See, attachment is the problem. The action is not the problem. See, tomorrow somebody comes and says, Chitraji, can you help me? I need some money. And Chitra says, okay, I give him $20 so that he can go eat food. What she's doing, is it good or is it not good? Good. Everybody thinks she's done good. But let us say, while going home, she has this thought in her mind that I helped that guy, I gave him $20. Tomorrow when I see him, he's going to be happy. He's going to respect me. Or he's going to be nice to me. Okay? And tomorrow she walks and that guy doesn't even recognize her. Trauma, sadness, anger. That is the problem. Because all of this is distracting you from your path. Giving the $20 did not distract you at all. That is what Krishna means when he says Nishkama Karma. That is what Naradji is also saying. The problem is not with what you do. Do your duties, do what is right. Engage, be in the world. But don't be attached to the results, because when you're attached to the results, that is where all problems happen. You see? So let us take a small story.
It's
So again,
also the bhav. It's also the bhav, Vinayak Prabhuji. When I gave him, what was the intention?
That's exactly what I mean. So the intention should be just, you did it just because it was the right thing to do. You're not doing it because you have some strings attached.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
those strings attached are the attachments. They are the results that you shouldn't be attached to. So let's take a small story that will probably help explain this even more. So there was once a talented artist named Suchita. She was very passionate about painting. Why are you smiling, Suchita? She was very, very passionate about painting. And she dreamt of becoming a very successful artist. She dreamt of having her paintings showcased in galleries around the world. She was working tirelessly to perfect her craft. She poured all her time and energy into making her paintings more and more beautiful and perfect. One day, Suchita received an invitation to showcase her work in one of the most prestigious galleries in Mumbai. She was overjoyed, of course. Her dream come true. So she's spending weeks and weeks preparing for the show. She puts in long hours. She sacrifices time with friends and families because she's so focused. She has to have the best paintings that are displayed in that gallery. Now the day of the show comes. Suchita's paintings have already been put up on the wall. Now Suchita has so much excitement. She arrives at the gallery. She's very excited. All my paintings, wow, they are all put up in the wall. They all look so beautiful. But slowly she looks around and she sees that many of the guests, they seem more interested in socializing with each other, and they seem more interested in the food and drink. Not many of them are standing and really appreciating the painting that she had made. Now she becomes disheartened. She invested so much time and energy in this show, and looks like people don't really care. She started to feel like a failure. And she started wondering, all my hard work, was it for nothing? I worked so hard. I sacrificed time with friends, with families. And my paintings are here, perfect, beautiful paintings, and these people don't seem interested. Am I a failure? Was everything for nothing? Just when she had all these thoughts, she almost gave up. She said, I'm packing up my bags. I'm going home. This is just not worth it. She had that shattering moment. At that moment, the young girl approaches her, a 6-year-old, 7-year-old girl. And she stands in front of one of Suchita's paintings and starts admiring that painting, you know. And she looks at Suchita. She doesn't know she's the artist, but she still looks at Suchita and she says, wow, this painting is so beautiful. It makes me so happy just to see it. I'm sure that even God must be happy seeing this painting. I wish I could paint like that one day. Now, Suchita was taken aback and very surprised. She had been so attached and fixed on the outcome of the show, of gaining recognition and validation from others, that she forgot why she loved to paint in the first place. In that moment, she realized that her passion for painting was not about achieving success or fame, but it was about the joy and fulfillment that came from creating something beautiful, which she had forgotten along the way. From that day onwards, she started to approach her art with a greater sense of detachment. She focused on her painting rather than how much people are going to appreciate it or how much somebody is going to pay for it. And then she suddenly started enjoying painting all over again. And guess what? After this aha moment, her paintings actually became more vibrant, more beautiful, and more expressive. That is the moral of the story. That story explains the concept of renunciation in action. Krishna, Naradji, they are not saying don't paint. They are not saying give up painting. They are saying paint it with a sense of detachment. Surrender the results to God. Then you will also enjoy what you are doing even more. So now Naradji is saying one of the ways of practicing that renunciation in action is by singing the glories and praises of Lord while performing our work and prevent getting attached to the outcomes. See how many times this repeats. But they are being consistent, which is good. Their message is very consistent. The more important point Naradji is repeating in this sloka is that the mindset of detachment and singing the glories of Lord, it must be, any guesses? Fill in the blanks.
With the right bow,
And
conviction.
Consistent.
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 Yes. You can look at this sloka again. There is a word there. It says nirantar. It is consistent. Again, that is the key. See, most of us think we need to worship God only when we go to a temple. That is our mindset. or when we are in front of God's photo, then we have to worship. But once we realize that God is omnipresent, we will understand why we should be worshipping God no matter where we are, no matter what we are doing. That is consistent devotion. There are people who don't even know what devotion means. These temples and these rituals are for them. Right? You are all postgraduates. You have to go beyond that. You don't have to go to a temple to pray to a God. And vice versa. As soon as you come out of the temple, it is not back to business. That devotional bhav, that mindset of devotion should be nirantar, should be consistent. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is written, it is 8.1.11. Yam pashyati na pashyantam chakshur yasya na rishyati tam bhuta nilayam devam suparnam upadvatata. Even though the Supreme Lord continuously observes the actions of the world, no one is able to see him. However, it would be incorrect to assume that because no one sees him, he cannot see us. That is an incorrect assumption. It is important for everyone to offer their devotion to the Super Soul, who is always present with the individual soul in the form of a dear friend. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. The Super Soul is always there, the best friend of everybody. So, offering prayers to Sri Krishna, Mata Kunti said, Alakshyam Sarva Bhutanam Antarbahir Avashtitam, which means, Krishna, you reside both inside and outside of everything. Yet the unintelligent, conditioned souls cannot see you. This is what Kunti is telling Krishna. She's saying, you are inside, you are outside, you are everywhere, but the unintelligent souls, they cannot see you. And in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna has said that one can see and perceive the super soul through Jnana Chakshusa. What does Jnana Chakshusa mean? Eyes of knowledge. That is what Krishna had said. So these are very beautiful, very well thought out teachings. If you just introspect, you will see everything makes sense. There is no vague statements. There is no random talk. Whatever Krishna says, Jnana, Bhakti, Karma, they all have a place. They all tie into each other beautifully. We just have to understand the core concepts. So, like in these shlokas, we realize the importance of knowledge, Jnana, because that is the function of the intellect. And when the intellect is focused, when the intellect is sharp, it will get your mind under control. And if your mind is under control, then the battle is almost won. Half the battle is won if the mind comes under control. The next part of the battle is just about keeping it under control. That is where consistency comes into place. You see, so it all started with jnana, intelligence, intellect. So that is why Krishna said, you can perceive God through jnana chakshusa, eyes of knowledge. And because the guru is supposed to open the eyes of our knowledge, that is the job of the guru. That is why we use the guru mantra that says, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshur Umilitam Ena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. So what that means is, I offer my respectful obeisance unto my spiritual master, who, with the torchlight of knowledge, has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance. That is why the Guru Mantra talks about opening the eyes, because that is what Sri Krishna has also said. The eyes of knowledge. That is very important. So pretty much that's the job of a guru, to open your eyes. The guru's job is not to drag you by your hands and take you anywhere. The guru's job is just to open your eyes, direct your intellect, and everything else you do yourself. So there is a saying, if you give a man a fish, he can eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he can eat every day. The job of a guru is to make the students self-reliant, make them bhakti yogis. They will succeed themselves. So once the eyes are opened, the students should feel the presence of God and see God everywhere and in anything. But in order to reach that stage, along with knowledge, what else do we need? We need purity. And we have to prepare ourselves with consistent practice of bhakti. That is how you can prepare yourself. Otherwise, remember what Adi Shankara said. 1 week I'm very, very devoted, and then I go for a few parties. When you come back, you are weaker than when you started. The struggle is now even more to get to that same level. Then you again struggle, tremendous willpower. You somehow try to get to the same level you were before those parties and nonsense happened. Again, some other party comes, again, some other event comes, again, temptation, again, a break. You again come back, you're again weaker than where you started. Eventually, it gets tiring, and you think you are not progressing because you are not. And people give up the path of bhakti. Not because the path of bhakti does not work, but because the path of bhakti works only when you are consistent. Consistency is the key. You don't have to be a Mahayogi who can be without food or water for months. Not required. You don't have to be an Ashtanga Yogi who can touch your nose to your feet. Not required. I mean, feel free if that makes you happy, do all of that. What is required is consistency. If you are consistent, you are making progress. That is the message. And that is how you prepare yourself. And so Naradji is again saying here that one of the easiest ways of being consistent or practicing consistency, he says, is constant and consistent chanting and singing of the Lord's glories and praises. It can't be so hard, right? Like Suchita can tell us, Suchita, when you are painting, you can chant in your mind, right? Yes, you can. Deepaji, when you are driving, you can chant. Yes, you can. Simranji, when you are writing, you can chant. Like Chitraji, while cooking, you can chant. There's no stopping. Let that become your background music. Your own chanting should be a back. Some of us, like I know, some people I've seen, they keep these machines in their home that will keep chanting the Lord's names all day, and it doesn't disrupt them. It doesn't, it is going on chanting, and the people continue to have their discussions, continue to do their activities. It doesn't come in the way. So you take it one step ahead and let the chanting come from within you. It can be silent chanting. And so that is where I've realized that Om Namo Narayana is a very sweet, smooth chanting, which is much easier to do within your mind than the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Because there are no breaks and it's smoother, it is kind of easier, shorter. It's entirely up to you. It is just based on my experience. I found this to be very soothing and something that you can do all the time. So that is one of the things. So I hope this all made sense, my dear Satsang family. With that, I will open the floor. If you have any questions, comments. Would you like me to stop the recording first? Okay, I'll stop the recording first.